Welcome, latest Motley Fool Scoreboard. I'm on in Chocolate Balloon. We've got longtime fools, Carl Teal and Keith Spites, giving a 1 to 10 rating to a top 200 stock in the primary Hidden Gems database. It's Intuitive Surgical, ticker symbol ISRG. Rate the strength of Intuitive's business first, including factors like industry and competition. 10 is invincible. A 1 is hopeless. High marks from both Carl and Keith. Keith, you both got 9s.
Right. Intuitive Surgical is fairly close to invincible. It continues to have what I would say is one of the most formidable moats in the entire healthcare sector. Anand, we're talking about a company with over 80% recurring revenue. It also has a large customer base that's very much motivated to maximize their ROI, and they do that by increasing the number of procedures they perform using Intuitive's Da Vinci and Ion systems. And the more procedures they use the system for, the more Intuitive's recurring revenue grows. So this is just a great company, I think.
Yeah, Intuitive, they essentially created the industry that they operate in, and they're still operating incredibly at a sort of near monopoly level decades later. That said, as we're sitting here recording this right now, Intuitive just reported earnings last night. And, they talked more probably about competition directly than that's been sort of growing as a thing in their calls, which I think is actually a really great sign that they are just absolutely not going to be taken sleeping by this. They're really, really focused on even the first signs of competition that are finally starting to trickle into the market. But yeah, this looks like a company that's way more likely to disrupt itself than get displaced from the outside.
All right, let's move on to management, which actually scored a little lower, despite Keith saying they're very ready for the competition. A 10 is Warren Buffett, a 1 is Homer Simpson. Carl's a little higher at a 7.5. Keith, you're at a 7.
Yeah, so Intuitive Surgical has a new CEO, or relatively new. David Rosa has been there as CEO since July of 2025. And I just don't think there's been enough time to fairly grade his performance. And so that's why I'm giving him a 7. That really doesn't reflect anything negative he's done. It's just that he hasn't had enough time at the helm. I am giving him the benefit of the doubt to some degree, though, because the company has continued to hum along so far under his watch. And I do think Rosa could easily deserve a higher score in the future once he's had more time to make his mark on Intuitive as CEO.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same rationale for me. I mean, he stepped in to replace Gary Guthardt, who was, really one of the great CEOs, definitely a 9 or 10. I think it says something that the share price didn't really skip a beat when the transition was announced, and I think that's because the company is in such strong shape that they knew things were going to be fine at the business, even with Gary Guthardt stepping down. David Rosa, though, he was like employee number 9 at the company. So I mean, you certainly have to give him some credit for the success over the decades, and also he's like Gary Guthardt, he is another sort of engineer / leader who had a big hand in the Ion system and the SP system. So I think the company's in great hands.
For financials, a 10 is a fortress, a 1 is yikes, 8.5 from Carl, 9 from you, Keith.
Right. I do think that Intuitive's financial position is very close to fortress-like. The company has a strong balance sheet. Revenue is growing by over 20% year over year. Even more impressive earnings growth. They have a huge cash stockpile. It's really hard to find anything not to like about this company's financials.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I guess I could have given them a higher score. You could always say they could have more cash on the balance sheet. I mean, honestly, at this point, they have more cash than they need. They are returning cash to shareholders, not through a dividend, but they do it through buybacks. They wrapped up an $8 billion program last year. They've authorized another $4 billion program, so I think that'll continue. So yeah, really, there's nothing to complain about on the balance sheet.
Yeah, it's when you're saying, oh, an 8.5, I feel bad for how low it is. That's pretty good regardless. Let's move on to that valuation, Carl. How well will Intuitive Surgical stock do over the next 5 years? How safe is it? 10's a sure thing. 1's a lottery ticket.
Yeah, so, obviously we've given all these really high scores, and so not surprisingly, when it comes down to this part, it's kind of an expensive stock, right? It always has been, probably always will be. And I don't think you can entirely ignore that. I mean, I was really pretty cautious on the stock last year when it was in the $550 to $600 range. It's just, it's despite great execution, it was getting a little hard to justify, seeing great returns from there. Much more comfortable with it in the mid 400s. The Ion's a great platform. The DaVinci 5 still has a lot of rollout to do. And I think their AI strategy is really fascinating with the DaVinci 5 just collecting all kinds of data that earlier systems didn't. So, they do have some deep-pocketed competitors, though, that could put some cost pressure on them. They're not going to get displaced, but it could mean some cost pressure. So I'm giving them a 5 to 10% grower with a safety of 7.
Yeah, I really agree with Carl's take overall. Valuation is a perennial concern with Intuitive Surgical. That said, the company should have, I think, reasonably strong growth prospects with DaVinci 5, international expansion, and then you've just got aging demographics worldwide that provide a tailwind to this company. I'm going to step out a little bit. I'll go with 10% to 15% growth, but I'll have a safety score of 6, which is just a little below Carl's.
Thanks to both Keith and to Carl. They've given Intuitive Surgical a strong overall score of 7.6 out of 10 with no top-its. Look out for a new scoreboard every market day at 7 p.m. Eastern. Next up is Merck. Till then, Fool on.